Let us pray. Heavenly King, Comforter, the Spirit of truth, who are everywhere present and fillest all things, treasury of blessings and the giver of life, come and dwell in us and save our souls, O gracious one. Lord, we come together today to discuss ways of meeting and ministering to your people inside our churches and outside our churches, into the home church. Lord, be with us, guide us. We pray that you give us insight and help us connect together to respond to this crisis and this time of stillness, which is beautiful. And we ask that you were with us today as we serve and love your people. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
So I think I'm the first one on the list, and I feel like I just lost Thomaida.
Yep, I think she dropped off because I saw a little pop-up Zoom inside. It said that Alexis Pappas is now the host, so it deferred to that account.
Wow. Okay.
Was that a rap?
So while we are on, and I'll just kind of start with what Thomaida asked me to share. First of all, let me just share with you that I am not an IT person. I am somebody who is just a chanter in the Presbytera and somebody who cares deeply about our community. And we just want more than anything to reach out to our people and do our best through this time to bring to light our services and offer this connection for our families. And somebody with absolutely not to say I have no tech background, but I'm not really at all familiar with anything much more than Facebook. So she's asked me to share a little bit about how our church community came into live streaming. And we're a small church. We only have 160 families. So we used to be a mission church, but now we've grown to a substantial group, but we're still small enough that we have a small little building. And our Orthodox families were really united through this platform of Facebook. And not only do we post prayers and articles and things throughout the year, which I'm responsible for doing, but when this whole pandemic arose, we realized that we needed to address the services and have people come together for the services. I am a cancer survivor, just finished treatment, and it was evident when I couldn't get to church. The very first Sunday we live streamed, and I was sick and I was unable to get to church, and it was unbelievable the experience that I had, because we put up our little camera with just an iPhone. Actually, it was an iPad the first time. We did a reverse image so that the priest could actually see the service that was going on the iPad, which we realized was a mistake because Panagia was on the wrong side and we did not do that correctly. But we learned from that experience. But the thing I wanted to share with you is the power of being in front of my computer, hearing the voices of the people in my community singing, and feeling so reassured and so connected with the people who were signing on. So I knew that Sasha was on, and then Georgia was on, and I saw these faces and I saw these people coming through, and it was quite extraordinary to have this, experience where I am at home, but I'm at church with my community worshiping. So I realized from that standpoint, the power of this medium. And the other thing that was really amazing is that my husband also got what I got, the bronchitis, and he was sick the following week, so we did not live stream. And then in that Sunday, I was able to see the power of the Universal Orthodox Church. So no matter where you were worshiping, whether it was you're clicking on a link from Greece or you're clicking on a Facebook from California or Alabama, you are all united in the same service. And I think that was one of the most powerful experiences too, because we all realized the universality of Orthodoxy, and that no matter where we are, we're all connected through this extraordinary faith. So on that note, I just wanted to say that for us, it was a really interesting process of deciding about using Facebook for our small community rather than going onto a service that was going to push us into YouTube and to other platforms. We did try actually signing up for a service, and right now I can't remember the name of it, and I'll find out what that was. But it was a service that like streamed everything, and then you were able to go from Facebook to YouTube to some other platforms. It ended up being a little confusing for me because I wasn't aware of exactly how to set that up. So I'm just telling you my experience from putting it just on Facebook. So what we ended up doing is just taking a simple iPhone 8 that looks like this, and we ended up putting on and I will share a screen so you can see the little, hold on just a second. I'll share the screen so you can see. You gotta find it first. The little mechanism we use is just a tripod that had a camera. Here it is. Okay, so it looks like this, and I will share the screen real quick. That's what happens when you have too many screens here. Okay, here we go. So can everybody see that? So this is what our little situation looks like. We have our pictures of our parishioners that we put on our chairs because that really makes me feel comforted to know that everybody's with us. And then we have just our tripod with a flexible arrow that you can actually put the iPhone on. And then what was actually really important is that you're actually facing the altar with the screen and you're not doing a flip screen. So that was a really important piece of this that I needed to get. Okay, so now, Thomaida, you're back on. I'm so happy to see you. You got off for a second. And Alexis Pappas took your place.
Excellent. Thanks, Alexis.
Well, she didn't say anything, but okay, so let me just see here. I'm sorry, I've lost my screen to stop sharing. So is there any way you can stop that share? Thomaida?
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to kind of share with you our experience was super easy. All we did was jump on Facebook, push live, and we started the services. The next thing we realized is that our chanters being on both sides, in which we had to keep kind of apart, and the Metropolitan was really clear that we needed to follow the guidelines of our state when we were live streaming. So if you had just a chanter and a priest and an altar server, that's kind of the basic bare bones minimum. But our state allows us to have 10 people within a worship space. And so we were able to put 4 chanters and a priest and an altar server. So that's kind of how we've been doing it. And we have a married couple on one side, myself, and then our other chanter, Tom, on the other side. We're 6 feet apart, but we realized that where the camera was, it was not giving us a great sound. So we decided that we needed to mic ourselves. So we have a microphone over the one chanter stand, we have a microphone over the other chanter stand, and Father Tom needs to be mic'd. And you think that on small services, when no one's there, you don't need to be mic'd. But this was really helpful for us that we're mic'd. And so then we realized that we need to actually pull ourselves a little bit closer into the altar so that we could be seen, first of all, because I think people kind of wanted to see the chanters. And then the second thing it was so that we could be heard. So that was just a really important thing that we also realized. And as singers, we also realized the importance of enunciating and really, really articulating the text. And because people don't have service books, they're reliant on that. And so we've really benefited from doing Facebook Live. And I'll also share another screen, and I'll just show you just a little bit about what that looks like for us. Share. In that, our Facebook screen, I hope, Thomaida, did you see that? Okay, so this is just the live stream services that we did. And like 2 weeks ago, we had 1,500 views. And then we post them after the Facebook live is over, and then you just press share, and then it goes into your videos and it archives so that people don't have to be watching live, but they can watch later. So for instance, you can just see how many people viewed the service, how many people commented or liked the service, and then and the views. And so that was another really beautiful thing that we realized we're really reaching a lot of people outside of our church. And this is a really amazing ministry tool. And because our services are all in English, I think that's one of the things that kind of draws people. And then as you can see, like on this one, you can see how our chanters are here, and then we are 6 feet apart on this side. And so that's kind of something that you can kind of look at to see how that worked for us. Okay, so you can stop sharing that screen if you want, Thomaida, thank you. And then the other issue that came about is just making sure that when Father Tom's giving his sermon, he's coming up closer to the people, and I can kind of take my hand and zoom in with the camera. That actually is helpful. We don't have anybody running it, it's just me. So I just am clicking on it live, go chant, come back, and then at the end, press share. And it's been a remarkable tool, let's say. And the other thing is that people are coming on, and as they're coming on, they see the names of people coming on, and they feel like this sense of community. So that has been a very beautiful, good experience. So this is like the bare bones, easiest way to live stream.
So we do have a couple questions, Pres Pat. We might as well go for these. Somebody's asking where you bought the tripod, and maybe if you can find a link while we're doing the call, we can.
Yes. Okay. So I did buy the tripod. Our secretary did, but I will find a link, and I'm sure we can find it on Amazon. And yes, that is something that we can do. So I'll find that for you before we're done.
And then someone's asking, I think Father Aaron, she did address some of this with the picture where you could see where people were standing. The camera is facing the altar.
It's right in the middle. Mm-hmm.
And no one's looking at the screen during the church service.
That's another thing, is during the church service, I brought my computer, and I'm actually live streaming, watching what's going on, so I can see if there's any issues. So I have my computer next to the chanter stand. No one can see me with that on the right side. And I kind of will, about 3 times during the service, I'll just go over and just check that everything's okay. So I have that going on the right, so no one can see me looking at my computer, but I just walk away, look at my computer, and just make sure that everything's like lined up well.
Right.
Because those people who have OCD, and they see like things are not clear. Like our first one was not straight. We got a lot of comments on that.
Anything about audio being, like this question about audio being mixed? I don't think we mix the audio. You just, whatever.
You're just living with whatever quality phone you have. But I have to say, you need to enunciate. You have to tell the chanters it's vitally important. And you need to also make sure that you're a little bit closer. So that's why we brought our chanters closer so that they could be heard, and we mic'd them.
Okay, great. And then I know there's another question. Can the chat feature be removed from Facebook during the live streaming?
Yes, you can remove the chat. You have control of that from the page. It's funny, but I think that's a powerful tool too, in that people have an opportunity to, when Christ is in our midst, they write Christ is in our midst, and you like feel that. And I think there's a little bit of a power to that. So I'm not really big on removing the chat unless it got, these situations people can be on it. It's a public space. So it can get not good in some ways. So you have to be kind of careful about that.
Okay, so I have 2 hands. Father Aaron, do you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and share your question?
Thank you, Thomaida. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, I just wanted to share that what we've done with some success is, in addition to similar to how you're doing the Facebook live stream, we have a couple of chanters on a Zoom call, and my laptop is sitting close enough to my phone that the chanters can actually sing, the music they're singing comes out of my laptop and goes into the live stream audio through my phone, so that we can have, even though even though I only have one chanter, say, in the room with me, my son, we have a couple of other chanters kind of mixing their singing in with the service.
So they're Zooming chanting in from somewhere else?
Yes, like Theo Giannatopoulos is here. You can see he's right there in front of Simona Petra Monastery there on the screen. He and another chanter have been chanting. They've been on a Zoom call. And then if we have any youth that want to do readings, like a psalm or something in the Paraclese service last night, they were reading, they were on the Zoom call as well. And then we could hear their voice. And then that came, again, out of my computer and then into the live stream that everybody on the parish was then listening to and viewing.
And how do you coordinate who's doing what? Do you do that all ahead of time and everybody makes sure that they're aware?
Yeah, it's not seamless, but yeah, that's the concept. Is I sent out a group text to all of our youth and I copied one of our chanters, and I said he's the point person if they want to read. And we had one adult last night too wanted to do some reading, and if we ran out of psalms from the Paraclese service, we just turned a few little hymns into readings, and then we had people also reading those on the Zoom call, and then that again the audio from the Zoom is coming out of my phone and it's out of my laptop, and then it's being picked up by the mic on the cell phone.
And is your laptop picked up to an external speaker that actually makes it sound? Because out of my computer, I don't think we'd get a very good sound. So how are you doing that?
It actually works okay with the speaker on my laptop, but my son has a nice Bluetooth speaker which works even better. We plug that into the laptop, and then I think that is heard even more clearly by the people who are viewing the live stream.
Okay.
I love that idea.
We're going to keep going with questions. I see the hands. Alexis, go ahead.
Oh, hey, Pres Pat. This wasn't a question, but it was something adding to what you said about the comments, that one day I felt inspired to do some teachings about Orthros via live stream in the comments section of Facebook Live, and Father Gregory said, please keep doing that. And so then some people have commented in. So I don't want to bother people too much, but I have been using the comments as a way to add teachings to each service.
Beautiful.
Very creative. Okay, Father Jan.
We actually started with Zoom and are using Zoom for the broadcasting. And we've had readers, and now Saturday we'll have the first chanter who will join us remotely. There's no need to have speakers and microphones. It's all there. Not only that, but it can also send out, I think, simultaneously to YouTube and Facebook as you handle it in Zoom. It's extremely powerful. It takes a few tricks to figure out how to keep the windows on and, of course, the microphones and everything else. But it has it all for remote participation in chanting and reading.
So Danica, thank you, Father. Danica is going to talk about the Zoom solution, but we have one more question before we get to Danica about Facebook that I want to get to. Father John Emanuelson from Maine is asking, he says he's been using his personal Facebook account for services at the church, and how can he link this to the account for the church instead of from his personal, I guess.
So I don't have an answer to that. I don't know how to link something from your personal account to your church account, but maybe somebody does. They have a hand up.
Okay. You might just need to do it through the church account. You might need to log in and do it through the church account in order to get it.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would log it through the church account, but I also think that you can send a link from your personal account to the church's account, and people could click on that, but they would be hooked onto your personal account. And I would not suggest doing it on your personal account. I think you need to have a church account that you do it with.
We do have a church account, but I cannot find a way to go on Facebook Live from my phone on the personal on their church account. So
and are you an administrator on the church account?
I am now, but my iPhone will not show the icon to click on for Facebook Live.
It's actually, okay, yeah.
I'm actually pulling it up right now, Presidenta, if you don't.
Yes, please.
So here's our Facebook page for our parish. Sorry, I know this is kind of weird to do it this way for All Saints, but Father, if you scroll down to where it says create a post, where it says photo, and then right there it says live, that should be, if you're doing it on your mobile device, check that out, because that's how we do it. For some reason, mine was defaulting as well. When I tried to do that, it was coming back to my personal page, but it seems to work from Father George's phone. So I'm having glitches with it, but I know it can be done. So if that's not on yours, what's up? Oh, Father George is talking. Sorry.
I say it works with mine. I created my own page. Then from my page, I created a parish page, and I can go live, and it works seamlessly.
Well, I haven't been able to find that that on my phone at all, unfortunately. When I go down to my Facebook page, I haven't seen where it says learn more. That doesn't do it.
Maybe stay on after Thomaida, then we can show them how to do it. Okay.
I think we will definitely connect you with somebody, and maybe we can, even if it doesn't happen in the Zoom call, we can do it remotely as well and work together. Okay, so I want to introduce Danica. I'm starting to introduce Pres Pat, but Danica is a parishioner at St. John the Baptist here in Beaverton, Oregon. And like Pat, both of them are not IT people. So I really wanted to invite them to come and talk, because like all of us, like we've been learning on the ground and trying to adapt really quickly and use our talents, and also pull in other people in the parish that have talents. And Danica is actually a producer. She works on film and advertising in the Portland area. And so, we really look to her we want a good quality production, I guess. But she's been able to help us figure out, good cameras. And the solution that she worked out for St. John the Baptist here is we're actually using Zoom and broadcasting onto YouTube Live. So to tell us about like how they chose that, why they chose that, any troubleshooting, or kind of the journey you've been on, because we've only been live for a week. So
yeah. So the conversation started before I had the opportunity to enter into it, just because of settling into COVID chaos, and I'm home with 4 kids too. And then because my industry is dependent on physical production, there was a lot of shuffling around of projects and things. So what they had decided was I don't think there was a Facebook page, and nobody wanted to start one. And they had initially tried streaming directly into YouTube, but they were having some audio issues that nobody was familiar with. And initially it was all done on one computer. They were using the computer's built-in eyesight or computer camera there. And they were hardlining the church audio system into the PC. But they couldn't figure out what the buzzing was. And so our journey has really been one of experimenting and then troubleshooting. And while I'm not an IT person, I have done a lot of troubleshooting, especially because I grew up, my dad's a Lutheran pastor, and he's got a lot more instruments and inputs and outputs to deal with. And so I've always been the support for that church. So we were starting from the beginning and trying to figure out what the best option is. The two things that Father felt really strongly about were that we had an Ethernet cable that we were running the stream through, which was really smart because Wi-Fi can be very unreliable, and that the church sound system was being used because that's how it was going to be mixed, and that's how it was going to be best heard. So what we ended up doing was, I'm actually going to share this picture from the Grow Orthodoxy Instagram, because Thomaida took it the day that we were working on it. We ended up setting up a little table that looks like this, and this might look more complicated than it is, but this is essentially the computer that's hosting Zoom, and then you can see there that it's got a view of the front and all of the activity, and we included the pani over to the chanter, and then this was kind of the backup and something that we're still experimenting with. This is just my iPhone that we use at home for homeschooling stuff, so it's not attached to anything cellular. It's just attached to Wi-Fi, and we streamed the Zoom through there. And the reason why we did that was because we wanted to test the picture quality, and we wanted to see how stable that Wi-Fi connection was. And I think one thing to be aware of is that if you're dependent on Wi-Fi, once everybody starts to come back and you want to continue to do this, there's just going to be a lot more activity and a lot more disruption for that, and the Wi-Fi connection is probably not going to be very stable. So considering how you can stream either with a dedicated source, and your data, your cell phone data can be a pretty decent source if you've got good reception out there, or if you can switch to some kind of Ethernet setup, which means using a computer.
Danica, that's one of the things that I forgot to share, is that we ran into issues live streaming with our internet. So I was live. That was one of the reasons why Facebook was so easy, is because I could just use data from my phone.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that really drains your cell phone battery. So you have to be plugged in to an extension cord, and you have external power that you're always, because it will go out at a 2-hour service.
Yeah. And fortunately, the newer iPhones have really, really great battery life. So if they're charged, they should be good to go. But the more things you ask of a device, the more power it's going to take. So if you're using local Wi-Fi, that's not as difficult of a lift for the phone as if you're using your data. Right. If you've got your visuals on, if you're using the camera, that's, you know, an additional strain on it, or an additional, just additional memory. And then if you can see the video, and if you're also using audio, so all of those things kind of add up, and it's just good to kind of understand like the behavior of that technology when you're trying to troubleshoot something. So going back to why we didn't end up streaming directly into YouTube, we couldn't figure out what this buzzing sound was. And at first I thought, well, you know, maybe it's the mics picking up some lighting, like electrical noises, or maybe it's the fan, because you just never know with how audio in particular is translated and digitized and then pushed back out, how it's going to interpret some of those sounds. So very high-pitched things and very low-pitched things that a lot of people can't even really hear, can sometimes get picked up depending on how close the mic is. And just like that frequency translation can just be a pain. So my suggestion, I actually haven't confirmed this, but my suggestion was, why don't we try doing it through Zoom, because it seemed like it was a clear sound through Zoom. And I believe one of the advantages of Zoom and these kinds of video platforms is that they have some components that manage the stream and mitigate for those kinds of issues. So if you've ever been on a Zoom call with somebody who doesn't have great reception, or their Wi-Fi is going in and out, you will notice that it'll condense and then speed up, but it won't cut out the video necessarily, won't cut out the dialogue. I don't exactly know why it does that, but I do know that it's designed specifically to avoid and mitigate for dropping streaming in unreliable service areas. So that was my initial theory, and frankly, just it worked when we started to push out through Zoom. We didn't have those audio issues anymore, and it did. Yeah, so that's basically the reason why we landed there. The other thing was, when I jumped in and was just trying to respond to the ask, I didn't know exactly what platform we thought we were going to land on, but I did know that Zoom could push out to Facebook, and as well as YouTube. And if you want to get really fancy, it can also push out through dedicated embedded spaces, but you really do need a tech person to help you with that. So if we could my thinking was that if we could just get good at doing Zoom, it would be the vehicle for pushing out to wherever we wanted to ultimately go. The other part of it was that we had some struggles, because in the nave, the audio system is pretty far away from where we wanted the camera to be set up, and we actually just plain didn't have any of the cords to get things into the right position. So the next step that we took was we brought in a second computer, because we did have a computer, and we separated the audio and the visual component. And this is something that I think we're going to continue to do, because of a real practical situation we had where, frankly, the computer, for whatever reason, booted the video and we couldn't get it to come back up. But because we had a second computer that was was contributing the audio, kind of like how you were talking about contributing the chanter audio, the service continued to be heard and streamed. We just lost the video element of that. And that's actually something when I'm setting up other kind of audiovisual situations, or if we're dealing with like trying to do coverage for something on social media, a step that you always have to take when you're thinking about this is what I'm presenting has two parts. It has the visual part and it has the audio part, and you have to solve for those independently of one another, and you have to troubleshoot for them independently from one another. And when you separate them, you create more stability, I think. But we're just so used to like all of these interfaces where I push this button and then it does all the things that I want it to do. And we don't realize how incredibly intuitive all of that software and user interface is. And then one little thing goes wrong and we don't know like where to look for that. So that's my recommendation actually for improving, at least creating some stability and improving the audio component. And then when we decided which computer was going to have the Ethernet cable, we opted for the audio, because at the very least you could hear the service, and that was the thing that everybody was participating in. And then actually, and I'll say this to sometimes, or I've adjunct in film schools before, and I hear this a lot with professors, and I say this to other people that I work with, but your video or your movie is not 50% audio and 50% video. The way that somebody receives it is really more like 80-20. And you get so much information from the auditory input that if you have to choose which one you're going to do, go with the auditory input. And a fun example is if you take a movie and you watch a scene and you turn off the video and then switch it, you turn off the video and you just listen to the scene. Which one do you have a more emotional reaction to? So that was my thinking too, with making sure that we prioritized the audio there. And then I came up with, I mean, this is a pretty boring checklist, but it's a really, really superficial overview that kind of helps somebody at church walk through the principles of checking all of these components. And I tried to write it for somebody who wasn't super technical. But basically, I mean, have I described it? I'm afraid that I go down this like tech jargon road. Do we feel like we're following along, or is there anything that I can stop and explain? Because what I want to help you build in your head is a picture of the pieces that we have. We have two pieces, a computer that takes care of our visual and a computer that takes care of our audio. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so the computer that takes care of our audio is a Fujitsu. It's an old PC, and I ask it, make sure everything's plugged in. The things that are plugged in are the Ethernet, the audio input, and power. And I actually had it written on this list, but I was trying to make it really simple. But those were the things like you have to remember, and like Presbyterio was saying, you have to count or consider power too for all of these things. It's an easy thing to forget. Then our second computer was the MacBook, and that was the visual. Make sure everything is plugged in. So in this case, it's not Ethernet, it's going off of Wi-Fi because we only had one Ethernet. And then we had a camera that we could plug in, but we decided to use the eyesight. So really we're just looking for power, make sure the Wi-Fi is working and make sure the computer is working. Then turn on the church lights and the sound system. And then you start the Zoom from the MacBook. And without getting too deep into this so that we can save time for questions, the basic steps are you start the Zoom meeting and you're not streaming live. You're just starting it. You're just starting it in Zoom. You do have to have a pro account, and you do have to set up. You have to toggle a setting that allows for streaming, but it's very simple. It's just a little bit buried. So I've done that. We did that before, and then it's on perpetually. And then here's just some make sure these little things are happening. Make sure that your audio is muted. Pinning the video means that video will stay on top for everybody. In our case, nobody is joining the Zoom meeting. We're pushing it all through YouTube to make it very simple. So after we've started the Zoom meeting on the MacBook, which is the visual component and the host, then we're going to join the Zoom meeting using the Fujitsu computer, which is our audio. So it's contributing audio, just like I'm contributing audio right now. I'm contributing both video and audio to this Zoom meeting, but we turned off the video for that computer and just left the audio stream on. It's pulling from the church sound system. We joined not by logging anything in. In fact, we very deliberately kept that one logged out, but just adding the ID number. to the meeting, and it's password protected, so we could log that password in, and then it was contributing just as just a member. So there's a 2-member meeting happening. Then we went back to the host computer, and we start the YouTube live stream. Very simple to do. There are 3 little dots. Once you've enacted it, there are 3 little dots that pop up at the bottom of your Zoom meeting. And I wonder if I can show you here, actually. I think I took a screenshot of it. Oh, I didn't take a screenshot, shoot. It's in the nav bar where you can mute and you can add your video. There will be a little 3 little dot thing that says more, and all you do is click join. What is the verbiage there? Start live stream to YouTube or something like that. It redirects you to a browser, and that browser asks you to just log in and confirm the name of your meeting. Here, actually, I can show you what that looks like. When you push that button inside Zoom again, very straightforward. It takes you to a login page. You log in, and then you get this little page. And this whole time, the Zoom meeting is going, but then nothing is live on the internet until you push it through this way. And then you hit go. You need to give yourself like 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes for it to start running. And then what you're going to see on YouTube is going to be 20 seconds delayed from what you see on Zoom. So usually at that point, the chanter is warming up, and I will go take my own laptop or my phone, and I'll go run into the back or someplace where it's quiet to just make sure that I can see what's happening and make sure that both the audio and visual components are coming through on YouTube. And even though it takes 10 minutes to explain this process, or like 20 minutes to explain the process, it's actually a very quick setup. So somebody can get it going in 5 or 10 minutes really quickly. Although I always recommend making sure that you give yourself a little time to troubleshoot. So that's how we set it up at St. John's. And I think we're still working on exactly how we want it to look. But this is really effective and really fast. And it's also something that I don't necessarily need to stick around for, since I'm usually running over there, starting it, and then coming home to watch the service with the family. Yeah, so that's been working for us. And just so you know, Thomaida, too, I pulled up a couple of other tools that we could use that I could show others how to incorporate into their systems, depending on if you're using a computer or if you're using a mobile device. The only thing to consider is that, remember, mobile devices are going to be contingent upon cellular service or Wi-Fi availability.
Okay, awesome. And I was going to ask you, YouTube requires 100 subscribers, right? So
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I didn't really set up the YouTube side of it, but basically the church just sent out in the newsletter like, hey, just make an account if you don't have a Google account, or subscribe to this because we can't stream until we have 100 subscribers. Oh. It did take 24 hours to get permissions in place to then live stream. And then weirdly enough, I will say the very first live stream, it actually took 5 minutes before it started to accept the feed. There was still the same 20-second delay between the Zoom meeting and then the actual live feed. But I think that was their system just plugging everything in, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I do recommend, if you're going to use YouTube Live, to do it through Zoom, because Zoom has a lot more controls and a lot more safeties and a lot more spaces to troubleshoot in. YouTube is not super user friendly, and it's a little raw, and a lot of the stuff that if you ask it to do exceptional things, it will take longer for you to get to where you want to go. And you can create problems with your stream that are really hard to undo once it gets going.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to take 2 questions now, Aliki and then Laura, if Laura, you still have a question. And then I want to share a couple other things. Hold on. And this has been there's a lot of questions and a lot to ask here. So I think what we're going to figure out is also a way for everybody that attended. I want to send out a document kind of resources and people to ask, and everything that's been going on in chat, I will save that as well and share that. so that we can follow up on a lot of these really good questions. So we're going to go ahead with Aliki, your question. Can you unmute yourself and ask us?
Hi. So it's actually not a question. So I do the website for St. Spiridon in Newport, where Father Aaron is. And it was more, I just wanted to share something that I found with Facebook Live. One of the things we found was that if you're streaming from your phone with Facebook Live, they don't let you schedule it. So you can't have the link to the live service ahead of time. You can only get the link once it's started, as far as I could tell. I don't know if anyone else knows differently, but so we were wanting to send out the link to parishioners that might not be on Facebook, older or ironically maybe younger parishioners that aren't on Facebook beforehand, but instead, you know, I was having to, as soon as it went live, you know, get the link and send it then. So I found a WordPress, our site is on WordPress, and I found a WordPress plugin that actually detects when you've gone live on Facebook and automatically embeds it into your website. And it only costs $49. I mean, it costs $49, but that was just a one-time fee, so it seemed worth it. So I was able to set up a page that's just slash live on our website, and it will just always be embedded there. So you just have one link that you can send to everybody. So
And
I
can
just
you
wanted
tell us what that, share with us what that software is called?
Yeah, I will share the link to the plugin, but so it's not a question. I just wanted to share that because I found that to be pretty useful.
Okay.
Really?
Thank you so much. And Father Jan, you wanted to share something about Zoom?
Yes. Thank you so much for this presentation. We've covered much of this territory on our own, facing it and learning about it. And as I said, we started to use remote participation with chanting and reading, but we also enjoyed tremendously the fellowship time after the service. Once the service is over, we tell the people, now you're on. Unmute your video and your microphones. You know, we have a few tens of them, not many, 20, 30 people. And we're having our great fellowship time right after the service. And you cannot beat that. Every single service we've had this, and people really like it. They can see one another.
Yeah, I was a big advocate actually for Zoom exclusively instead of doing YouTube or Facebook for that reason, because it's different to be able to, it's a different experience to see everybody coming on and being able to see their faces when they're jumping in to participate. So maybe that will be in the future for us. One of the other reasons I was going to say too, with the complications of some people having Facebook and some people having YouTube or not knowing how to get onto either one. The other nice thing about Zoom is that whenever you start a meeting, or if you set your meeting ID and it's always at the same meeting that you're logging into, you can also have a phone component to that. And that's something that I actually use professionally all the time is having that extra dial in. I'll call in and then in case my video drops. So it's again, that concept of separating out the audio from the video. But for some of our older parishioners, it's something that I recommended is that we just share the dial in and the meeting ID. And it is, you know, 2 steps. You got to dial in, wait, listen for the ID. Or if you have a smartphone, you can just click on the link that it provides. But then you know that you can have a second or third reliable way of getting into or participating in the service.
That's great. One other thing that we tried last Sunday for the first time, we had close to 30 people, and we broke the group into rooms, into subgroups, because we thought there were too many to chat. So I think they were randomly put together for a few minutes to get to talk to one another, especially to welcome if you have newcomers in a small group.
Yeah.
Father, can you explain how you do the subgroups in Zoom?
Yes, there's a button we have at the bottom there that allows us to break. I mean, it's called rooms, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I haven't used that feature, but I know I've been a participant in meetings before.
Yeah, the people can sign up to go to a particular room ahead of time by their email, or the host can assign them to the rooms that he defines in terms of their number and who will join these rooms. Or I think Presbytera did it last Sunday randomly. She only told Zoom, create 4 rooms, and Zoom went and picked up to have kind of a balanced distribution.
Awesome.
Okay, Thomaida got.
So
Oh, there. Are you back in?
I'm in, but I'm on my phone. So Danica, everyone might know I am just on my phone now, and this is a good lesson for me and for all of us how dependent we are on the internet. So I'm going to ask Danica to share the Zoom meeting tips document that I emailed to her this morning. Can you share your screen, and then I'll just talk people through it. So basically,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing right now. And I know a lot of you are moving to Zoom Bible studies and Zoom fellowship. Some people are doing coffee hour on Sunday after they finish liturgy. Is the document, can everybody see the document? Or
I don't have it.
still
I
working
don't have
on
it up just yet.
Okay. Okay, no worries. So what I tend to do is when I start a new Zoom meeting is that I always talk people through the basics of like how to show their video, how to mute and unmute themselves. And of course, all of you that are on this call, you know, you can see that. Now I'm on a phone and it's a totally different interface than on a desktop, which is good for me because now I can see, okay, this is what I can talk people through. This is what you're going to see on your iPhone. So I always try to make sure they know where the chat window is, how to raise a hand, how to mute themselves, how to unmute themselves, and also sharing documents, that kinds of things. So I have included in the tips. I don't know if it's sharing yet because I can't see if. Okay, so I know that like a couple of tips. I always try to elevate my my setup so that I like put a bunch of books underneath so that it's elevated so it's at eye level. I always try to make sure there's a light source shining towards my face because, as many of you know, that if you have a light source behind you, you're just going to be backlit and we won't be able to see your face, and that's a pretty common issue, is just trying to figure out how to set up your workspace or your Zoom space so that you can be seen. Other great things is I noticed that you cannot have, so it has to be open on your desktop, and then it'll give you the option of sharing it through Zoom. So if you're going to run a meeting and you have a document you want to share, make sure that before the meeting starts, you just open it up and have it there on your desktop. And then when you hit share and Zoom, it'll give you options to share things that are already open on your desktop. Danica, how are we doing? Did we find it? Or
I did, but I actually I don't have Word, so I can't open it.
Okay. Pres Pat, are you able to open it?
Sorry, I was not. Hold on.
No worries.
I will. I'm on my work computer and it's on my other computer, but let me just see if I can grab it.
Okay. All right. So this is, I mean, there are all kinds of complications to this. And I know that some people mentioned that a free basic account, you have to have a pro, have meetings for 3 or more people for an unlimited amount of time, and you can have up to 100 attendees. If you have a free basic account, you can have unlimited 1-to-1 meetings. So if you're just using Zoom to talk to one person at a time, you can meet with them for an hour, 2 hours at a time on Zoom. But if you're trying to do, oh great, you got
that
it.
work? It's in Pages, so the formatting might be a little goofy.
So it's just a 1-page little overview. So thank you so much. So the pro account is $14.99 a month right now, and that'll give you unlimited time for up to 100 attendees. So of course, before you have to schedule the meeting, and you'll have to figure out through the interface how to do that. I can help you if that's a struggle. I really encourage everybody generally to prepare to be seen, because right now, especially, I know that people really want to see each other's faces, and it's really, this is something I was going to mention at the very beginning of our meeting too, why live stream from your parish if there's so many that are doing it. There's a huge benefit for people to see their priest at the altar that they're used to. It is very consoling. And I know that a lot of people have said to me like that, you know, oh, like they could have gone to this church over in DC, or they could go to the one in San Diego, but they really have chosen to go to their local parish because they want to feel like they're still attending liturgy with their local community. Another thing that's been kind of fun is that I know with our metropolitan that people who have found him at liturgy have said like, oh my goodness, that was so comforting to see a familiar face, because we all know our metropolitan from his visits. And so they've been attending, or at least logging in for any homilies that he gives. So we don't always have the opportunity to follow the bishop where he goes to church every week, but for some parishioners, that's been really consoling for them while they haven't had a local parish to attend. So that's just to underscore the whole importance of seeing your face and being seen. And it really is nourishing to our souls to kind of be able to see each other through Zoom, since we can't see each other in person. Some parishes have like a guideline for dress code or environment, like please, especially for youth meetings, I've seen this where they've said, you know, you need to be dressed as you would for leaving the house, or they offer some other kind of standard of dress, and avoid being in bed or lying down. So those are things to think about. During the meeting, like I said, I always start off by walking people through the functions of the Zoom window, remind people that we're going to record and mute participants. And then after, it's great to, like after this meeting, I will definitely need to follow up and send everybody, you know, a link to the chats and all the things that we've been seeing in our chat window. I'm going to actually right now remind maybe Alexis and Danica, if you can try to save the chat window or copy and paste the contents for me, that would be awesome, since I'm not in there. And then reaching out to anybody. So you send a recap email to recap things that are learned. And then another thing, a priest was telling me that, you know, he had a Zoom Bible study and, you know, 8 out of 10 people made it, but 2 didn't. And he thought, I better check in with them to see if they need help with their technology or if they're doing okay in general. So that's a great extra step if you can do that. And then if you're going to have a YouTube channel, to post your recordings. So one note I do want to make is that a priest was sharing with me that his parish was doing Zoom Bible study basically, and Zoom small groups. And they were just posting the links on their website and on the parish calendar, and they did have some people coming in and bombing the meeting and asking things and saying inappropriate things in the chat and kind of bombing the meeting. So they instantly switched. They got everybody out of that meeting and sent everybody a link privately through the parish email. So I know that's a pretty uncommon thing to happen, but it's something to keep in mind and to be ready to ward against. So do try to share your Zoom meeting links privately. It's not an issue for things like live stream where it's one directional, but if it's going to be a discussion, you want to make sure that people are in a safe space. Okay, so thanks for sharing that, Danica, and this will be in the email that I send out following the meeting, or a link to it on our website. I also want to mention that the goarch.org they've created a online COVID-19 digital toolkit, and they talk about Facebook social tools and training. They talk about Zoom. So that's at goarch.org, and there's a what do you call that? A banner across the top of the page and giving you the links for the digital toolkit. So I highly recommend looking at those resources. And as we're getting to the end, Danica, can you stop that share possibly?
Yeah.
I don't know. As we're getting to the end of this meeting, I want to say that for those of you, thanks, Stephen, that's great. For those of you that are had a question about linking chanters through Zoom, I'm going to connect at least 3 people, but let me know if you want to be connected into that so that you can discuss that and kind of get that ironed out in your own call, because, or your own, like an email conversation, because that sounds like a really, that's something popular that people want to know more about. And also Father John Emmanuelson, I'm going to get you connected with Deacon George and Father George about the linking of the personal and parish Facebook. So if you have anything like that from this call where you're like, I actually want to know more, talk to somebody who's doing this specific thing, please email me at the email that you received for the link. So thudanish@sanfran.goarch.org, and I will connect you with a person who can help you. Any other final comments? It's 1 o'clock, so I do want to conclude our time together, but if we feel that this is a very profitable kind of format, maybe we will have to have a reprisal and come on together and answer more questions.
Thank you.
I think that the struggle is the troubleshooting part of it. Is like everybody has a slightly different setup. So yeah, getting to talk to other people about it is helpful. We kind of found our group of tech people in the church, and the same thing for like my father's church. He put together a group that's available for like 1 hour a day to be called by anybody in the church that's having technical issues, and it's basically just all of his parishioners that are under 35 and all of the parishioners that are over 55 are giving them calls. And it's been a really great way for them to connect to and ask kind of broader questions of like, where's that YouTube? And like, how do I search it? And, I mean, it's a struggle to figure out the platform and to get to it.
I see Laura Paulus has her hand up.
Yes, Laura.
I thought I'd just take a shot at that. Wait, I don't know if I'm unmuted.
You're perfect. We can hear you.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. And I'm sorry to prolong, but I just, our struggle, we've got the Facebook streaming and the audio mixing and everything down. I'm in a massive parish, St. John the Baptist in Des Plaines, Illinois. We have so many elders who are not internet connected. I'm dying to know if anybody has found a smart way to make great sound on a conference call where you can dial in on like a 10-digit phone line. If anybody has a thought or, you know, can send me a link or anything. I've tried and failed several different approaches so far, and I'm almost ready to give up.
I think, I mean, with Zoom, you can dial in to listen for sure, because every Zoom meeting comes with a phone number.
But it changes every time, and so these are folks who don't have email, so they can't know what the new phone number is.
You can use a static Zoom, so you just have to make sure to do that. You can just use one static Zoom meeting room. So it can be done. So it just has to be, everybody has to agree that this is the only meeting room we're using. It's always going to be this phone number with this meeting room. So I definitely have people doing that for me, like other meetings that I'm attending weekly, they're always the same meeting room. So that's one solution. I mean, another thing that we've talked about at St. John the Baptist, and also I know another parish in our metropolis has talked about, is identifying who isn't online and actually who has an old laptop or an old iPad and would be willing to take it over, you know, or set it up so that they could use it. That's difficult right now because there's probably a big learning curve, right? If you've never used these tools ever.
Well,
but
internet access, unfortunately, you know, we're talking about people in nursing homes and, you know, just kind of a really large group of non-internet connected people. So
yeah,
but that's a great solution too.
Yeah, there are, I know there, if they're in a place where they can potentially have the internet, but don't, like a private home, I know there are resources for people that financially don't have the ability to connect to internet. There are also those resources, and I have a friend that's gathering information about that for me. But yeah, I think the best bet sounds like the phone call, sounds like the Zoom phone call, and just having the parish agree we're always going to use the same meeting room. And for like our meeting room, it looks like ours is 441, is that 100, I think so.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 411-100-5667. It's the top of our meeting today. And I could, you know, I haven't arranged it that way. Tomorrow's call is a different meeting room. But we could have arranged it so that every time the Missions and Evangelism Ministry does anything, we always use the same meeting room. And that way the phone number wouldn't change and people would just dial in the number and then punch in the meeting room.
So the meeting ID is also the phone number to call?
No, the phone number is separate.
Oh,
but
sorry.
That's included in the Zoom invitation, and then it'll ask you to punch in your meeting ID.
Can you get a phone number for the private room in Zoom? Or
You
only
get a
for the
phone
one-
number. You get phone numbers every single time you schedule a Zoom meeting. Those are offered, and it's just that a lot of people don't cut and paste them to offer them to people, but because they want people to come on their computer or their iPhone. But the phone numbers for no, I've used it with Basic as well. For non-internet connected people are always available.
You have to be very careful to make sure that that person is doing a phone call from their time slot and not from a different country. Because sometimes this has happened in Zoom meetings where people dial up a number and they're actually dialing up like Australia or something. And then they get this $250 cell phone bill. So you have to be very careful about what numbers you're actually getting out to people, because I've heard of that happening.
So maybe, Laura, in the conclusion of this meeting, for the chat, the links, everything that I need to compile to send out to everybody, I will also maybe take some screenshots of where the phone numbers are located in the invitation so everybody can see what that looks like after you schedule a Zoom meeting.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and close with a prayer. And I think Pres Pat has something prepared for us to sing or say together from the Akathist hymn.
Yes, I do. So I'm going to share a screen with you. This is a YouTube video that I put together for our people who could not attend Akathist, so they can sing along with us. So we'll just do the first stanza, okay?
Okay.
So that means we need to mute ourselves and just sing along.
Unmute. Pat, unmute.
Unmute, Pat.
Mother and queen, and I shall be seen in joyous
Jubilation,
proclaiming exalted in all of her
wondrous deeds.
Oh, Christ spoken down with life and clearly filled with Spirit's grace. Unseen the pure wonders, and exclaimed, rejoice, a vessel of rejoicing. The hearts of mother's church utterly is dispelled. Most holy Theotokos, save us.
All right, I think that was probably good enough. I just wanted to say, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, bless you. And thank you so much, Thomaida, for bringing us together. I learned a lot today and really helpful information. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, especially Pres Pat and Danica. I appreciate all that you prepared for us and all the lessons you learned. And I know we're all working towards helping everyone connect in preparation, especially for Holy Week and Pascha. And please, please send me your emails, your questions today after this meeting, and I'll work on compiling all the good things that we've learned into an email to send back out to you.